I'm a teacher like you. I teach at the conservatory in Boston. I have a class on Friday afternoon. People come from all over the world and they're excited to be there and they're eager to learn, you know. But what's really going on, they're saying, am I better than her? Am I better than him? I know I'm better than her. I don't think I'll ever be as good as him. I hope I can be as good as her. They're constantly comparing and they're measuring. And when they come out to play, let's say the violin, it looks as though there's one person playing the violin, right? There are two people. There's the person who's playing the violin, and then there's another person standing behind the person who's playing the violin, whispering in his ear, you haven't practiced enough. Do you know how many people play this piece better than you do? That difficult passage, you missed it the last time. It's coming right up. You're going to miss it again. That's the voice in the head. And if anybody's saying, what does he mean, a voice in the head? What's he talking about, a voice in the head? That's the voice I mean. Took a moment for you to hear it, right? But that voice keeps talking and talking and talking, and it never stops. You know, sometimes it talks so loudly that it drowns out the music. So my job is to get hold of that voice. And this is how it works. I do it each year. I come into my class at the beginning of the year, and there are about 40 students in my class, and I say, after a little bit of housekeeping, I say, your grade for the year is an A. You're an A. That's your grade. And there's one condition. The condition is that they have to write me a letter in the first 2 weeks of the class, of the year. The letter must be dated the following May, when the class ends. So the date at the top is May 2000 of the next year. And then the letter must begin with these words, Dear Mr. Zander, I got my A because. Then they have to write a letter describing who they will have become by the following May to justify this extraordinary grade. And I tell them to fall passionately in love with the person they're describing in the letter. And they do. They write about who they would be, who they could be, who they see themselves as if only that damn voice would stop telling them they can't do it. When I come into class, the person I teach is the person that they have described in their letter. You see, I only take A students. Now, there are a few people looking very concerned and saying, how does he do that? Well, the answer is very simple. You can give an A to anybody. You can give an A to a waitress in a restaurant, to a taxi driver. You can give an A to the other drivers when you're driving in traffic. You can give an A to your mother-in-law. You can give an A to your boss. You can give an A to anybody. What happens when you give an A is that the relationship is transformed. This is hard for teachers. I know this is very, very hard. I addressed a group of teachers earlier this year, and one of them came up to me afterwards and said, I like this giving an A. It's sweet, he said. But he said, but it doesn't make, you don't know the students. You don't know them. You don't know their work. So I imagine as the year progresses and you find out that some of them are quite mediocre, I imagine you modify the grade, right? I said, no. And then I tell them about this young girl I met. She's about 15. I said, what's your name? She said, Joy. I said, I beg your pardon? She said, Joy. Now, should her parents modify her name? No, because we don't give children a name as an expectation to live up to. We give children a name as a possibility to live into. The person who understood this perfectly was Michelangelo, and I'm sure you've heard this beautiful thing, but it bears repeating. Somebody asked Michelangelo about sculpting, and he said, oh, sculpting is easy, because you have a piece of marble. Inside the piece of marble is a beautiful statue. All you need is a hammer and a chisel just to get rid of all the stone that's in the way. And then That's actually a theory of education. It's, of course, not the one we use. The one we use, we're up here, the students are down here, and they try to get up and they do their homework and they work hard and they study and they work as hard as they can, and this is as far as they get. This is the gap between their achievement and our standards. And of course they're very manipulative because they know what we want to hear so they can get up a little higher. Michelangelo's model is totally different. It's eye to eye. We each have a hammer and a chisel and we're working to get rid of all that stone that's in the way of that beautiful statue. It's a totally different world.